Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in, Joe Cucchiara, Real Estate Radio Live. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you again for tuning into the show. Appreciate it very much. We continue to have a lot of great feedback and information on the podcast for almost 11 years now. For those that might just be tuning in, over 1,700 shows, including the live radio shows we did years ago, and including podcasts as well. We have hundreds and hundreds of great guests. We want to continue to do that as we roll out or come out of the pandemic. I'm not sure if we're going back into it or not, but we'll try to get more and more guests in. We are not doing anything in the studio anymore, unfortunately, like we were doing, but we will hopefully get back to that one day as well. So again, for almost 11 years, over 1,700 interviews and 10+ thousand downloads each month. We appreciate those that continue to follow the show and give us feedback and interact with us. We appreciate that very much. A lot of loyal followers and people who reach out to us with many different questions regarding real estate, what's going on in the marketplace, in and out of the state. There's so much interest in investment property. We get a lot of information on those that are interested in investing in outside of California specifically. So before we get started on the topic today, which is the eviction moratorium, does it help or hurt? I have some opinions on that, and I will share some of the data and statistics around that as well. Just a reminder, this show is brought to you by Bundle Select partners with corporations all over the United States to offer employees a platform to bundle and save on all their real estate and lending services throughout the United States. See why now over 37 million employees are signed up on the platform for Bundle Select. If you're an employee of any company, doesn't matter what size, and you're looking for benefits that do not cost you, that's right, no cost benefits that you could benefit from buying and selling real estate financing, talk to your benefits or HR people about Bundle Select. Just go to bundleselect.com. Also, if you're a benefits or HR person looking to add a great benefit to your company at no cost and add those on, no different than 401k, medical, dental. People spend a lot of money on real estate and lending, and we have a way to save them by bundling services. Again, it's direct to employees. Go to bundleselect.com. That is bundleselect.com. All right, our topic today, the eviction moratorium. Does it help or hurt? There's a lot of information on this in the news, online, in the media about right or wrong, good or bad. And I'm going to always try to do is stay away from the political response instead of the reality. So what I do these shows and the way I operate my business, for the most part, as much as I can, is to stay away from the political nonsense about any topic that comes up. So when we talk about this topic like we're going to do today, the eviction moratorium, I'm going to be speaking about it based on data, information, statistics, feedback, things that I'm seeing in the news. And when I say news, things that I know to be true, and some things, of course, you never know which are perfectly true, but that's why you do the research. I always remind people the best thing any of us could do is turn off the television and go do your own independent research on any topic. And also turn off your social feeds for a while. Go do some independent research on any topic that comes up, and you might be surprised. I think you might be surprised of what you might find. So the idea behind data and research is that you hope to get down to the bottom of the real issue or real answers on a topic. And this specific topic today is the eviction moratorium. So the reality is this, is that it was a great tool, and I think the thought process was meant to be good. And what I mean by that is that this eviction moratorium was meant to, when the pandemic hit, let's face it, no one in their right mind, I don't care who you are, what political influence you are. It has nothing to do with that. No one knew how this thing was going to affect the United States. No one knew how it was going to affect the economy. No one knew how it was going to affect real estate. What we did know is that millions of jobs are lost in a short period of time. And the fear was that many, many people would not be able to pay their rent or their mortgages. So let me just separate that, because this moratorium on eviction is different. This is about people renting and not people that are mortgage holders, which is a different conversation and topic for another day. So I think the idea, the concept, the model was good, was well intended when politicians and people that made this decision to get the moratorium started. I really do. I think it was with good intentions. But then, like anything else, when you launch a program or a product or a service to help people in need, what you have to do is you have to continue to evaluate that need. And as it evolves, is there still the need, or does it need to be fine-tuned, or is that being taken advantage of, or is there some issues around that we didn't know when we began? So that's normal. That's what businesses do. That's what people do all the time. If you launch a product or a service, or if you have an idea and you launch it to the consumer or the marketplace or whatever it is, you evaluate it. And some of it's good, some of it's bad. Some of you get customer feedback, you get client feedback, you get all kinds of feedback, and you find out, well, gee, I need to tweak A, B, and C, although look at this, some of these areas of the products and services working very well. So let's go back in and let's fine tune, and then we will keep 70 to 80% of what we're doing, but we're going to change maybe 15 to 20 or 30% what we're doing and try to perfect the process, system, or product. We should take the same approach when it comes to things like the eviction moratorium. So my point and my position where I stand on this is that it was well intended. I think a good majority of people benefited from it, and they should have. If you lost your job, there's no reason why you should all of a sudden be stuck in the dark and on the streets and be homeless. We already have it now in a challenging situation with that. So it was well intended. The problem is no one has gone back and revisited and found out what good came from it and what bad came from it and what good could come from it and what bad could come from it in the future. This is where the problem lies. Okay? Well intended, help some people. Now it is not helping a lot of people. Matter of fact, now it's doing more damage than good. And not just my opinion. Again, I would encourage people to go do your own research. So the research and the data that we collected tells us that roughly, there's no science, but roughly 25 to 30% of people are now continuing to really have a real need for this eviction moratorium. Okay, 25 to 30%. So 2.5 to 3 out of 10 people probably really need this eviction moratorium to continue for a little while longer. You see what I'm saying? So 6.5 to 7 out of 10 people are taking advantage of a system that is having a detrimental effect to the economy, quite frankly. And a lot of people, we'll just keep spending money and printing money. What a ridiculous way to run a business. Isn't that a ridiculous way to run a business? I want to get sideways here, but man, no matter how you think or what you feel, can you imagine, I've always said this, can you imagine a business sitting around the board table or sitting around the executive team going, here's our strategy this year. We're going to raise fees and the cost of our products and service. And by the way, we're just going to print more money. That's what we're going to do. That's our strategy. So all of us, let's get together, all these great minds and brilliant minds sit around at a table or a conference or a Zoom. And guess what we come up with after all that deep dive into every kind of skill set and background we have? Our suggestion is going to be print more money and raise the prices on products and services because we don't take the time to run it like a business. And that's what most of the government does. This is the problem. It's not that there aren't good ideas, but you have to revise those ideas. You have to revisit those ideas. You have to fine tune those ideas. You have to go in and figure out what works and what didn't, and then relaunch, keep in place, or don't. So right now, I would tell you that this eviction moratorium is causing more harm than good. There are millions of people that are taking advantage of the system and not paying rent when they could be paying rent or should be paying rent. And in the meantime, these people that think, well, landlords, isn't it funny how the mindset of a lot of people are? Listen, again, forget the politics, but guess what? It is a dangerous thought or proposition when anyone already assumes that because someone owns a property and rents it, that they are rich and they are well off and they don't need to make a living. Think about that comment. Think about that process of thought process. Gee, let's create a moratorium, which again, I'm not saying it wasn't a bad idea, but now when it's shifted and it's really heading south quick and it's causing more problems than not, relook at it and change it or get rid of it or make some adjustments. But can you imagine someone thinking this way when you make a decision? Well, let's penalize the people that own the properties because we're assuming that they're working. Isn't it? Think about, I'm just seriously, I would love to have common sense injected into most of these conversations. Think about it when you make a decision and think just because someone owns a property that they are not losing their jobs or they are not financially impacted by the pandemic. I get worked up thinking about this and talking about it because it makes no sense at all. See, we make an assumption that a landlord or a property owner has an endless amount of money and they never have to worry about money and they were not affected by the pandemic. How crazy is this thinking? So again, I'm not saying it wasn't a bad idea. I'm saying actually in some ways it helps some people. It is not helping people right now. It's not helping the majority of people. What it's doing is building an entitlement program, and it's allowing people to not pay their rent when they should be and they could be. So what do we do about it? That's the big question. What do we do about it? Someone might, you're listening to this podcast going, great, Joe. I mean, you're upset about it. It should be changed. We should make adjustments to it. But what do you do about it? Well, I have some ideas of what we could do about it. I'm not saying that anybody's going to listen to me, but I do have some ideas about it. So right now, the program is not working. We've had it long enough. It's proven the majority of people are taking advantage of the eviction moratorium. And because certain political interests and people that are too lazy to look at a program and analyze it and take the time to figure out what pieces work and what pieces don't, you just throw a blanket over it and say, continue it, which is wrong. Which is wrong. So here are my suggestions, if anybody's listening, for the eviction moratorium. We know who's not paying their rent by now, right? Landlords have records of this. We know who's not paying the rent. This is a no-brainer, I tell you. We have the technology and the wherewithal now, by the way. So if I'm a landlord or if I'm a property owner, if I'm the government or if I'm whoever's running this program, I could pull credit on these people. I understand what these people's credit is. I could find out if these people are working or not. And if these people are working and they're not paying their rent, then that's a problem. Then guess what we could do? We could turn the tables on the people that are taking advantage of a program that was designed to help people who really needed it. So here's what we could do. We could know in short order Who is not paying the rent? That's first step. Step one, who's not paying the rent? Great. Step two, can these people legitimately get away without paying the rent? Maybe they're still out of a job. Maybe they're in a career that their job hasn't come back. Then guess what? They deserve to be continuing on this moratorium to revisit the next couple of months or whenever it is. I would be the first one to agree. Raise my hand and say, listen, we did our due diligence. This person legitimately lost their job. They're having a hard time finding it. They have proof that shows that they can't find another job. They have proof that shows they're looking for a job. And they're going to upload that documentation and prove it to us. So we'll continue it. But guess what? For the people that do have a job and are back to work and they're not paying their rent, they have 30 days. They have 30 days to start paying their rent again. And if they don't, then guess what? We're going to go back and we're going to charge them for every month that they got a job and decided not to pay their rent. That's right. So if this has been going on for 6 months and someone's had a job for 3 months and they've decided to forego their rent because they think it's an entitlement program, then we're going to go back and they're going to pay those 3 months rent back to the landlord. This is the solution. I know people will go, well, Joe, you can't manage that. You can't administer that. Sure you can. It's easy. Believe me, we have access. If you're a landlord, you have access to people's credit, their information. The government, the counties could get involved, the state legislature, they could get involved and say, listen, we love, let's do this. We love the eviction moratorium, but we're gonna go eviction moratorium 2.0. What's that look like? That looks like reevaluating every single person that is taking advantage of the program, and the people that still need it, guess what? We're going to continue to monitor that, and we're going to allow them to use those benefits. But guess what? The people that don't need it and the people that are taking advantage of this program, they're going to have 30 days to catch up on their rent or get back paying their rent. Or if they don't, then we're going to go back and we're also going to find out how long they have been working without paying their rent. Now, some people will say, well, Joe, wait a minute, it's a bigger problem than that. I could hear it already. Some people are probably saying, wait a minute, I lost my job. I got my job back, but I'm in the hole $1,000, $5,000 or $6,000 because I've lost my job for so long. I understand it. I'm not, you have to please understand me when I'm saying this. I hope I'm clear. If you as a person or a family or as an individual legitimately need that relief and that service, I am the first one to raise my hand and say, let's keep that in place. What I'm saying is our statistics, our data, our research has shown is that nearly 70+% of the people really don't need it anymore or didn't need it. And that's not a good system. That's not a solution to a problem. That is a problem to a problem. So what I'm suggesting is fix it, go back, make an announcement. It's being changed. These are the things we're going to input. I can guarantee you right now, if the government came out and they said, listen, we're going into eviction moratorium 2.0. Well, what's that mean, Joe? What it means is we're going to evaluate every single person that's on that program now, and we're going to send a notice out to them, and then we're going to send this notice. And it's going to be a legal notice. And the notice is going to say, this program was designed to help people during blah, 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 blah. If you have gotten back to work, if you are back on your feet, if you are earning income, we expect you to start paying your rent again. If you don't, in other words, send a notice out to every single person that's affected by this. Okay? That's the way you fix it. Now, some people, I'm not saying those are the ideas. I'm sure many of you have all kinds of different ideas, and I'd love to hear them. You should share them with your constituents or your local politicians or whoever you want to write to. I'm saying share the good ideas. I'm a big idea person. I love ideas, especially when it comes to improving things. Listen, we all make mistakes. I think everyone in their heart, when this pandemic hit, we all were afraid. We didn't know how it was going to affect any of us. Let's face it, none of us did. And then we find out how it's affecting people. And then as a nation, as a compassionate society. We want to all pitch in and help each other as much as we can. Believe me, there was many of us that helped small businesses. Many of us helped raise money for companies and people and individuals. I think most people did their part to try to do whatever they could. And the government did it too, as county and states, they do as well. I mean, listen, most people want to help. The problem is that we have to revisit these programs. And we don't want to create a situation where we're creating a bigger problem than we started with. And what I mean by that is kind of what I started this show is don't automatically assume that just because a person owns a property that they're rich and they never have to worry about money. Come on, how ridiculous does that even sound? And I bet you most of us know, I didn't know this, by the way, and it took me by surprise. Look it up. Here's the other statistic to me that's alarming. Over 70% of the landlords, property owners, the landlords, okay, over 70% of the rental properties on the market, I'm talking about residential, not commercial, over 70% are owned and operated by a single or individual or family. Now, what I mean by that is that I think a lot of people think major corporations and LLCs and partnerships own hundreds of thousands of homes and they're renting out and they're trying to screw people and they have unlimited pockets and all this. My point is this, and you know this if you're a landlord or property owner out there and you're listening to this podcast, you might have worked really hard and you own your primary residence and you own 2 rental properties, right? Or 1 rental property. And you worked really hard and you invested and you stayed to your course and you had a plan and goals and objectives and you hit those and you're proud of yourself because you have a rental property now and you're renting it out. That is an individual person, not a corporation, not an LLC, not a partnership. My point is this. The majority of people we're talking about when you say landlords, these are individual peoples or families that own another property, 1 or 2 properties or a couple of properties. Yeah, sure. Do some people own 20, 30, 40 properties? Yeah, God bless them. You know? You can't assume when we make a decision to just give something away or have someone stop paying for something, we can't assume. Now, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? What about food? I mean, you could argue. I think most people would say, what is the biggest necessity? I think a place to live, right? Somewhere to live. Most of us would agree it's the biggest necessity. Some people would say, well, food, gas, phone, right? But those things you don't need to live. Ideally, you need a place to live, a home to go to, whether it's renting or owning or whatever. Most of us would agree. But do we go to grocery stores and do we go to gas stations? And follow me here, listen to me here, and I'm serious about this. Why don't we go to large grocery chains, I'm not talking about the government, or oil companies, and say, listen, for the next 12 months, we're going to give a 30% discount off gas and food to every single person until this pandemic is over. Some people will go, Joe, what are you talking about? How could you do that? Well, how could you tell a person to stop paying rent? And someone's going to say, well, wait a minute, you just agreed that a place to live is the most important thing. Yes, I agree. I'm not saying it's not. But my point is, where does it stop and why don't we get more diverse in this offering? As a government or as a county or as a state, why don't we go to, again, what's wrong with the idea? Why don't we go and mandate that over the next 6 months, everyone gets 30% off gas and food? We need gas to get around in our cars, right? We need food. Public transportation for those that have cars, guess what? Free public transportation for the next 6 months. And I'm serious about this. I'm not kidding about this. These are things that we could do. But don't you find it interesting that we wouldn't do that? You know why we wouldn't do it? Let me tell you why we wouldn't do it as a government. And it's sad. You know why, as a government, we wouldn't go to every major oil company and say, we're going to take 30% off people's gas for the next 12 months until the pandemic is over because they're hardships? Or groceries, you know why? Because those are people that are putting money back in the politician's pocket. You see, single people, small family landlords, they're not putting money back in the politicians' pockets. And again, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or independent, it's all the same. Lobbyists put money in their pockets and sway their decisions and their voting rights. And so the reason why we don't go to oil companies or major chains or, for that matter, Apple or Google, why don't we say, hey, all phone service, go to Verizon. Your phone service is going to be free for the next year because we're trying to help people in a pandemic where a lot of people are losing their jobs. What I'm suggesting is, I should say, that we look at everything, and then when you design programs like the eviction moratorium, that you take another look at them after you launch them to see if there's any revisions that need to be taken place. And by the way, before I sign off and finish the show, if there's anyone that has different statistics or numbers or says, Joe, you have this wrong, I don't understand, you don't know A, B, and C, I'd love to hear it. Believe me, I think most of you know that have been following the show for years. We got, again, over 10,000 downloads a month average. I get a lot of feedback and information, and most of it's good. Some of it isn't, but that's okay too. My point is that if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast, you think, well, Joe, I don't agree. I think you're missing this. I'd love to hear it, and I really would. And I'm a very objective person. Matter of fact, it's great when you have someone out there that does their research and they come back and they say, you missed this. I think you forgot, or you didn't realize A, B, or C, or D. And that's great because none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We're all imperfect. And we all could learn and do better, for sure. So that is really a summary of the eviction moratorium. I think they should either cancel it. There's two options here. You cancel it and do away with it, or you come back and make some major revisions to it so that the system's not taken advantage of and people are not losing out, and landlords and property owners now are not being left behind, because that is not a good thing either. Please remember, anytime these decisions are made, they affect everybody. Don't just assume that they affect the renters. Remember, people who own properties pay property tax. Okay? People who own properties add services. They get new roofs. They get new bathrooms. They upgrade. They do different things. In other words, you buy homes and you buy services and goods and for your home every single day. Those are tax revenue dollars that go into the economy. So please, if I do nothing else but get one message out, don't automatically think just because someone is a homeowner or a landlord or owns one or two or three properties that they don't also have the same struggles and burdens that other people have. Because they do. We shouldn't assume just because you own a couple of properties that you're a multimillionaire and you don't have to worry about money. That is absurd to even think that. All right, thank you for tuning in. Once again, it's always a great pleasure to do podcasts. I'm sorry, I keep apologizing for this, but with schedules and a lot of things changing in and out with business, I'm trying to do these at least once a week. I'm going to try to get to 2 days a week if I can. We have a lot of guests that are backed up requesting to be on the show, and I hope to get to those soon as well. For more information, as always, those that know how to contact me, or if you're just tuning in for the first time, you could go to RERadiolive.com. You could download, go to iTunes, Stitcher, any of those places for the podcast. If you want to reach me, it's joe@RERadiolive.com or 408-838-9060, 408-838-9060. Also, if you're anyone on either side of these topics or issues, and you need some help, or you need someone, a spokesperson, or someone to come in and speak on your behalf, or you want to get a message out, I want to remind everyone, I should say, if you have a message you'd like to get out and you want to come on the podcast and be interviewed, please reach out to me. I'd love to be able to. We do giving back segments all the time. If you have a message right now you really want to get out to the community, especially in the greater Bay Area, that's what's our biggest reach. About 65% and 70% of the listeners on my podcast is in the greater Bay Area, which means Northern California here. Then there's some in other parts of California, out of the state, and then out of the country, but the majority is still in the greater Bay Area. All right, happy to get a message out. Could be a non-for-profit, could be anything. We're happy to help in any way we can as a community. We'd love to get that. For more information, again, go to RERL-1759-Eviction. Thank you again for tuning in. Hope you have a great afternoon. Until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.